All right, so we are we did a project that worked with data sets for local boards that included the city, the county, and the state, specifically Omaha, Douglas, and Nebraska. And most of the data comes from Douglas and Omaha at this point. So our team is Ryan, Mitch, Jay, Dave, Laura, Cody, right there, and myself, Noah. Oh, okay. So we had essentially two products. It was very similar to how the schools did it, where we had a basic UI and an API that came out of this data. So the current issues we had was basically all the data you're dealing with right now is spread across some PDFs, some Excel files. Some of the Excel files don't exactly match up with their rows, so you have phone numbers down here with the name it's corresponding with up here. Every board, and we're not talking like school boards, we're talking about like appointed boards that are appointed by the city council or the mayor. So all of these boards, they have their own format of how they report their information. So they may report their duties in some format. Some of them have terms that are different from each other. Like we have some where it's they meet once a month on Thursdays, except for in November because they do community service. Or some of them meet every Thursday. So there's just a whole slew of problems that you had to deal with dealing with this data. So thankfully we had the All-Star team with Cody and Laura dealing with this data entry, thankfully. So our approach was we wanted to take this data and we wanted to get it into a format that you could easily read through JSON and through the APIs. So you can just do an API call to our data and you get it. And it's all in a very standard format. And then on the UI side, sorry, I got out of order, but on the UI side, it's human readable. So if you are not a programmer, you can see it in the forms of, you get a list of the boards and you get a list of the information inside each board. All of our stack is Ruby on Rails and Postgres, and all of our information is available on GitHub. All right. And so right now we have a pretty good beginning, and we want to keep going with this. So we want to have some form of authentication built in. So if you wanted to contribute to this project, where you wanted, you notice, hey, John Smith is supposed to be on this board, but he's not listed on this board, you can make a request to our API or to our actual UI service and update the information. We want to get some more data on there, so browsing past board member data, viewing the yearly agendas, and all the minutes that were available for the meetings. So possibly as simple as someone just uploading a file of the minutes that were involved in a single board meeting. And then we also think it'd be cool is if you could follow a specific board. So anytime a change was made to a board, you'd get an update on Twitter or Facebook or any social network about the board changes. So now for our, do we have a demo up? Yes. All right, so here is our actual UI.
If you want, you can follow along on your phones as well, going to the same URL.
Mitch?
Okay. So my job was to just quickly throw something together that, I mean, the huge effort of our whole project was finding these disparate data sources and combining them all together into a single source of truth that anybody could utilize, anybody could read. So this is just one sample of any client. So somebody could build a mobile app that accesses this same data. And so it doesn't really matter how you implement it. This is just a single instance of that. So as you can see here, this is just a generic view of all the boards of the data that we were able to retrieve or parse data out of and store over the past 2 days. So if we scroll down here, you can see names of these boards, You can see a description of the duties that each board is in charge of, and how many people sit on those boards. So you can get a quick view of, oh, there's 11 people that sit on the Civil Rights Hearing Board. What do they do? So you can read that. So let's scroll down just a little bit more, and let's click on the Landmarks Heritage Preservation Commission. So there's 9 seats available on this board. So at a quick glance, you can see, oh, there's 9 seats here. There's actually 1 seat open on this board right now. It's currently active. You get a quick glance on the top left of what does this board do. You can visit their website. You can see when they meet. You can see what time, where they meet. Qualifications, if you're interested in being on this board. What does it take to be on there? What do I need to do if I'm a member of this board? Upcoming openings. So you can see, okay, I actually am interested in this board. How can I contribute? Oh, hey, I'm a layperson. I can join in December of this year. So, you can see, okay, now that there's an upcoming opening, I can start to take action. If you scroll down even farther, we can actually return a named list of all the members who are on this board right now. You can say, oh, hey, I know Douglas. He's the chair. So you can see vice chair. Any titles that we have access to, we can display that as well. So there's some data that doesn't have any of that metadata of what they do on the board. So we just have a list of names. But this is just a starting point, and all of this data that shows up there, it's all available through our APIs, which we also have documented. So, and there's a lot more that's not just here too. We have, what are we missing on here? I forget.
This is actually just the boards by the state that are only offered at the state level. You can actually drill down by county or by city as well. So the additional pieces where this can be explored, you saw with the to-do thing we can do, you can actually drill down by county or cross-reference that by state or cross-reference that by city, state, and county. So a lot of this still has a lot of work that needs to be done. We were still compiling this about 10 minutes before we got started in here. So, I mean, it has a lot of room to grow. One of the biggest things behind this is that we realized that if we could build this in a way where you can embed it in other apps or actually push data out on a, either on a quarterly basis or something, we could push it directly into the API and feed it on a regular basis. So the idea was to come back with an admin interface. We don't know how we would deal with authentication on the different folks to allow them to update it. But they could actually come back and add it into their normal workflow or something when they go to update and edit this. Instead of someone opening a new document in Word, they actually open a website, log in, and update the data. So that was one of the final goals we wanted out of this. So we could have an easy API that anyone could come in and put updates into whatever format they had. So there wasn't I don't know how to do this, or we don't have a system that connects with this system. It was a straight API that anybody could use. Go take 10, 20 minutes if you're in an IT department, read how to connect to a REST API and post the data in. Jay, you want to cover the actual format of the API and the JSON?
Oh, yeah, I mean, if you want to click to the Swagger. So this is I don't know if people are familiar with Swagger or not. I have badly documented our API, which is all working, but it's not all in here. But if you click on one of these Git things, because I just started this like an hour ago. So this is a system called Swagger, and it's a language agnostic documentation system for REST APIs, which is pretty slick if you haven't seen it. So as you look at these things, you drill into each of the Git puts and posts, which are not actually listed here, but imagine with me that they were listed here. And these form field submissions actually work, and it'll actually show you the JSON that returns all in Swagger. So that's pretty cool. So if you guys are doing REST APIs and you haven't seen Swagger, you should check it out, because you can plug it into just about anything and you just define it with JSON. So there's 10 entities in the back, and you can do full CRUD on all 10 entities, but I barely documented the first 3, not even close. So anyway, we'll get that fixed up from a documentation standpoint. I think from a business perspective, you guys can correct me because you were handling the actual business data, but I think the biggest problem that we were facing is that given that there's 80 boards, was it? And the formats, each of the boards is composed by legislation, which is all free-form text, from whatever year they were composed, and they're all sitting in different PDFs or Word docs or whatever they're sitting in. And they're all different, and all of the seats expire, and there's actually no one who knows what vacancies are on what boards in the city of Omaha. That knowledge does not exist. Am I speaking out of turn? That's the way I understood the business problem. And that blows my mind. If I was the mayor and I had 80 boards full of people and I didn't know like what boards had people on them or not or whatever, I'm a data guy, so I like data. So what we did by taking those 80 PDFs and putting them into a structured format is we could actually do then an RSS feed of, hey, here's all the dates that you guys are going to have openings on your boards, and here's the qualifications for all those positions. So if you're an engineer, then guess what? On July 13th of 2014, please show up at this place and whatever. So I really think that would be an important thing for a mayor to have. So.
Yeah, like basically all of this right now just exists in a giant Word document. That's the current, that's it. People have to request. Let's just think about that.
Yeah, currently even on the cityofomaha.org you can't get the Word document. But I mean you
can't request it.
Right. There's no download.
Well,
So
email it to
what I like about your guys' interface, if you click the view website of that board, does it take you then directly to their agenda? Because that's something else the city doesn't currently do, is give you one source for all your board.
But it looked to me like all the different departments of the city of Omaha had all different webmaster systems running that were in all different structured formats and all kinds of different sets of technologies. So given that crazy menagerie of things going on with different people with different skill sets and different technologies, I don't know how you could ever have consistency. So I would think, this system can be used as the data point from which whatever they want to build their stuff in. Like all departments don't have to be centralize their IT or anything. They can just build on top of that data structure and put it in whatever format they're comfortable with. So.
Currently, one of the easiest ways to figure out who was serving on a board was to search the board name, and then it would pop up on their bio, on their company page, the members, that they are serving on this board.
Yeah, so there wasn't
Yeah.
even a central way to find out who the board was.
Yeah, so that's what I could point out is like she was like Googling who's on these boards. Nobody knows. Independent research. It is now available to people.
Any other questions?
Where's the data that came from? We scrub the data, we put it in a Postgres database. Where's the Postgres database, and how can I get a copy of it?
api.localboards.org. It's also available, just go to localboards.org and yeah, it's up there. Yes.
Jay, what does your shirt mean?
Oh, sorry. So, okay. So I was in Asia for a month in January. The short version of this, sir. And we hiked in a national park called Yellow Mountain. And this says Yellow Mountain kicked my butt, but what I wanted is an extremely literal translation, because every time I was over there, the English was terrible. The English on signs was awful, right? So what I told my buddy, who's fluent in Mandarin and English, I told him what I wanted to say is the worst possible translation you can come up with. So what this says is Yellow Mountain grew a foot-like appendage next to my buttocks. And what I'm looking for is I'm looking to walk into like an Asian grocery store and like not say anything and not react, and then just talk really slowly and see if they react to it. I haven't yet got no reaction in the wild. So.
I was looking at this. Do you have information on how the individuals are actually appointed? So like, is it a
We have
appointment?
some of them do have qualifications, not all of them do. That's something that we have to do for currently.
Well, so to hang off to what she's asking, so like in a transit authority, we alternate. One's appointed by the city council, one's appointed by the mayor. You guys have that incorporated now?
We have the ability to track where
if
they
someone
came
gives
from.
that you
Yes,
information.
and that's the key is finding that.
So it's really kind of making sure that, again, there's a standardized format that you guys can process.
We have the structure.
Right.
If we knew the facts that we're missing,
Right.
they can go in the structure. And we'd like to see like delegated access control. So if you're the point of contact for your board or whatever, we could give you permission via whatever mechanism.
That would be.
And then you can shuffle the seats around and say whatever.
So I would assume, you know, you've got this interface that's pretty nice. Actually, it's super informational. Let me not downplay that, sorry. But reporting, you know, we look down there, we kind of got a synopsis of the board, what's available, who's there. But, you know, if I want to say philanthropic boards, I want to talk about, you know, county boards, planning boards, things like that. I mean, you guys have a way to like filter that down, drill it up. Even for a person.
Philanthropic boards?
Well, I mean, just like, you know, because I look at this type of tool, you know, like me, I think a lot of things that in other boards that I sit on, that this could be hugely influential, not just from a civic standpoint, from a municipality standpoint, it could be used in many facets where there are boards where you can say, let's just get our stuff structured and put this format out there. So I would really like to see a reporting piece on it, just from my statement, just say, hey, there's 10 nonprofits in this zip code that work on these things. So,
zip code, yeah. And where are the meetings held?
I was going to say you could add other data from the actual boards as well. For example, transit authority minutes, budgets, things of that nature as well, on top of the traditional P. I know I don't want to use the word PDF publicly here, but
Well, when you guys talk about the process, because as somebody from the outside who was here all weekend and watched you struggle with the way you built the tables, because you started with no tables to have to deal with scrubbing from that perspective. Talk about the way, because you guys structured this scalable, which is unique to any of the other projects, right? And I might misspeak about that, but because you were almost fighting about it at times about how to title tables and what cells to include. So will you talk a little bit about that process?
About the fighting data structure.
And fighting might be strong. I mean, you are data nerds, so fighting isn't really possible.
there was the fist fight. There was
Jake could probably speak more to that because he fought most with Ruby and its seed engine related to the tables.
Yeah, no, well, the way that it's currently structured is it's structured as any city, any county, any state, right, and could use this tomorrow. Like they can all post the APIs and it can flood the data. Anyone who knows how to do that. I think we need to flush out the web interface. If someone's going to do manual data entry, we need a lot more forms where you can actually post new things, and we have to figure out a security control. Like, how do we know that this random person from the internet is actually the authority for Tucson? I don't know how we know that. Anyway, early on, I was up in my head about, well, I don't want it just to be about boards. I want it to be any organization of any hierarchical depth, complexity, breadth, no matter what ever happens. And the phrase that I love is, well, we don't want to try to boil the ocean. I hadn't heard that in a long time, and I'm always trying to boil the ocean. So we didn't go as crazy as and I'm glad, because we wouldn't have anything to show you right now. But yeah, right now it's extremely flexible in terms of the parameters and the way that it's set up. I'd like to see the model expanded so it can be also used for like clubs and organizations. I'm involved in lots of organizations in Omaha. I know some organizations in Kansas City that really struggle to keep track of their membership and keep track of, well, who gave us $50 last year for the donor drive? And was that on July 13th that we could ask them for another $50 to renew their membership and keep track of all that over a web interface and send out emails and SMS blasts? And all that would be really cool.
And we've talked about other possibilities of other user interactions, such as I just learned that there is a committee that oversees like the cable organizations in Omaha, which I had no idea about. In fact, I had no idea about any of these boards. For a user to be able to say, hey, I want to be able to create a cable access show. Who am I supposed to talk to? This can be a great starting point, whereas instead of just a blank Google search saying, who do I talk to about cable in Omaha?
Cox.
This can bring up something where you just put in cable and it brings up a list of the results of committees and organizations.
And upcoming meetings that you can attend.
And upcoming meetings too, yeah.
And upcoming board seats if you want to be on the board.
Yeah.
And so the judges know this came directly from the mayor's office conversations that Open Nebraska had with the mayor's office last week. We know things the chambers have asked before, but they're trying to figure this out even within the structure of the city now, because they have no implementation plan of how to make this better. And this goes back to 2009 when the young professionals, Greater Omaha Young Professionals met with then Mayor Suttle and asked him to fix this data. And here we are 4 years later, and we have a team that did it in 2 days. So I really applaud them for at least starting the framework conversation that now we'll take back to the mayor's office and say, are you ready to hire as a weekend consultancy? Right, we got 7 people for a weekend and a measly $50,000 of tax revenue. We'll gladly get it done. Whatever I didn't say. But hopefully we can keep the ball rolling. That's the pressure that this one does allow us to put on some folks who've been talking about it for a long time.
Any other questions about this one, or shall we move on to the final?
I think we